Passenger hears soldiers talk then reaches into his jacket. A passenger on a flight was taken aback after overhearing a conversation on board. He was sitting near a couple of soldiers, so he could hear their conversation. What he heard sparked a reaction in him that would change all the lives on board. It was a usual day for one passenger as he geared himself up for his flight. He was headed for Petawawa and knew it was going to be a long flight. Before boarding, he decided to have a meal and a drink because he knew the duration of the journey. At that point, he didn't know that life was taking him on a journey of its own. As he arrived at the airport, he followed all the necessary checks. He checked himself in with the airline, had his luggage wrapped and locked so they would be secure. After checking his bags in, he was handed his ticket for boarding and made aware of the restricted items on board the flight. He didn't realize what an impact his jacket pocket would have. The man decided to have lunch since the flight was a lengthy one. As he sat down to a meal, he started watching the people at the airport. He started to notice things that you only would if you were sitting still for a while. It was then time to board. He showed the flight attendant his boarding pass as she directed him to his seat. She helped him stow away his carry-on luggage above his head and he gently settled down in his seat, securing the safety belt. The flight attendant didn't realize at that point that this was the man she would be emotional about later on. As he got himself comfortable, he noticed some soldiers also trying to find their seats on the plane. In fact, a couple of soldiers sat near the man. But this didn't faze him, and he carried on reading the newspaper while more people boarded the flight. As the plane started its journey, the man started to have a conversation with a few of the soldiers. He found out that they were heading to Petawawa for 2 weeks of training before heading out into the field. The flight attendant made an announcement that sack lunches were being sold at $5 each once the plane reached a cruising altitude. The man didn't need to eat because of his lunch, but he overheard some of the soldiers talking to each other. What they said moved him to act. He'd overheard the soldiers ask each other if they were going to buy the sack lunch. They all declined, thinking it was way too much for just a sack lunch, and instead opted to wait to reach their base. Immediately, the passenger reached into his jacket. He went straight up to the flight attendant and pulled out $50. He asked her to give all 10 soldiers on board a sack lunch because they deserved it. His actions moved the flight attendant so much that she completely teared up. She told the captain what this random passenger had done for the soldiers. The pilot came out of the cockpit to personally shake the man's hand and thank him for his kindness towards these soldiers. In fact, the news spread throughout the plane, and other passengers then came forward to the random man and thanked him by offering him more money in their gratitude. By the end of it, he'd received $75 more from other passengers, which he decided to give the soldiers and instructed them to get something else to eat once they reached the base. Thank you for watching this fantastic story. Please tap one of the 2 videos on your screen for another amazing Wonder Stories.